Hello guys and welcome to Tycoon Online 3 episode 32. Now this episode is going to be pretty fast and it's going to be in the new world. And here I am just doing another voiceover because that's basically the standard procedure for these worlds now. But this world is pretty successful, as you guys can see. Pretty high value, pretty high net profit for the fact that I've only been playing this world for about 4 days or 4 years in game. 4 days in real life. It has pretty low profit margins in terms of net profit up and then net value decreased due to expenses, but I have very, very high service investments and advertising investments, which is not usually the strategy I like to play. Now, as you guys can see in game, I'm just opening cargo routes here. It's nothing exciting, so I just wanted to spend this time to talk about my new approach on services and advertising investment. So one of the observations I made in this game is I feel like even for monopolies, advertising name value has a pretty large effect. And I'm not certain for sure if it only affects competition or monopolies or both, but I observed that the number one player in the current server you're seeing now had his airline based primarily around direct routes, but he had a very high name value in his main hubs, and that seemed to allow his planes to fill up pretty easily. Now, his main hubs were New York and Chicago, so you'd expect New York to Chicago to almost anything to fill up, but it seemed to be making a big difference. I'm not sure, but it does. The additional thing I noticed is that when competing, having a high name value and high service level seems to make all the difference. In fact, it makes so much difference in this game that I feel like you can openly open competition routes if you have good service and advertising, because unlike in Air Tycoon Online 2, where it seems to take a set amount of passengers that this route can generate and then divide those passengers and then consider the price. Not sure if it was in that exact order, but basically in Air Tycoon Online 2, it felt like the passengers would get divided among the people based on factors such as price. And if all the prices were lower, then there'd be more passengers. If all the prices were less, there'd be there'd be more passengers, etc. Basically, competition routes felt really bad, but now it feels like on high demand routes, even despite competition, routes do very well. They just stay full. I don't know why. It seems that the game generates passengers also based on service levels and stuff like that, and doesn't just use service and advertising levels to decide how the competition is split, but instead decides just the total number of passengers who might want to travel on that route altogether. So I feel like the slightly different systems for deciding competition routes makes it much more viable to actually just make competition routes now. So that's something which I can consider. Another thing is, if you don't invest in the services, it makes you really vulnerable to competition. So if you don't invest in services and advertising, people can open routes to compete with you, and you just lose more money than they do, and it's the end of it, basically. That's what's happened in my main world, which has forced me to open this new world, where I have high service levels right from the get-go, and I'm not going to lose an absurd amount of money trying to get to high service levels, which is what's happening in my main world right now. This will probably become my main world. Now, what else? Another thing I noticed is the way advertising expenses are calculated. They don't seem to change throughout the game very much. For example, in my main hub in London, in my main world, the London hub costs 60,000 K or something like that to maintain maximum advertising level. That is near identical to my current world. I think my current world's 50 something K. So it seems to be that the amount you have to spend on advertising and service investments scales with the number of routes you have, and in the case of advertising, also scales with the current advertising level. So the higher, the more it'll cost to get it higher, basically. And that presents an interesting question about, is it worth opening multiple hubs to occupy the best routes there? Well, if they're monopolies, then yes, it probably is worth having multiple hubs to occupy good monopoly routes. But it's probably an equivalently good strategy to only have a few hubs and just take them to everything while completely maximizing the name value investment there. in order to have a high name value and just compete with every route, open every route, and just do it that way with a high service invest level. Service invest levels, I feel like they scale off of the number of routes you have. That's not confirmed. It's just my hunch, and it's based off of the fact that my friend in the other world has 500 routes and I have 1,000, and he pays just over half of what I pay. I pay 800K for maximum service level or something, or like 650K, and he pays like 500K or something like that. Seems to roughly scale with the amount of routes you have. Like he's almost double my value, but has half the routes. So it doesn't scale off of value, so it probably scales off of something finite, like your passenger number or your route number. So it seems to favor large aircraft, is basically what I'm saying. Now, using all large aircraft and all small routes is definitely still not a good idea, but it does seem to favor companies which use mostly large aircraft in terms of the amount you spend per aircraft on service levels. So yeah, I'm not sure how that works entirely yet. It's just entirely hypothetical. Like, if I log into my current world, I can, like, check things out, but I don't know. These are all unconfirmed things. Air Tycoon 3 is a much more in-depth game than the previous ones because you can't win every world by opening infinite stopover monopoly routes. In Air Tycoon Online 2, that's a possibility because stopover routes have very few restrictions in Air Tycoon Online 2. You can literally open infinite I distinctly remember worlds where I had 2,500 plus stopover routes by 1975, and profits in the range of 2 to 4 billion from uptick to downtick per turn. I think it was 2.2 to 4 million K in each turn, so 2 to 4 billion profit per turn by 1975, and just something ridiculous like that. And your company would get so unsustainably huge you cannot play enough to replace the aircraft, basically. So that would happen in Air Tycoon Online 2, and I'm not sure if that's a problem anymore just because it's so much harder to make high profits. Like, once you have high profits, it's a lot to maintain because the companies have much lower margins. In Air Tycoon Online 2, you'd have about 30% margin, and then it'd be cut to about 20 by taxes. And in this game, in Air Tycoon Online 2, you'd actually have a 50% margin before taxes, and then it'd be cut to 20 to 30 by taxes. And in this game, I feel like you just have about a 20% margin, and a 20% margin is already good. If you have like a 25% margin, you're doing excellently. So yeah, I'm not sure how much longer this voiceover is, but like, hopefully, I think I've said everything I wanted to say. So this has been a pretty information-packed episode because I don't have to think about the game. I'm just talking about what I'm thinking of the game, where I'm a lot more concise, as you guys can tell. I don't have those long pauses where I just don't know what I'm thinking. But anyways, I really hope I got a point across to you guys where if you guys start early, especially, advertising and services can be very important. They at least feel to me as if in this world they are making a huge difference. They do cost a shit ton. I could double my profits by temporarily getting rid of them, but I feel like that will cause the company to slowly bleed. I think it's worth the slower progression in order to maximize your services early. The service invest cost is very expensive, and yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. This is the end.